So, welcome to Selling Later's Ask an Expert Atlanta edition. Today we're talking with Kizzie Crawford, who is our agent for the most populous county in the state of Georgia, Fulton County. Kizzie, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And so as we start, our first question is always about where you are and what is the most unique thing about Atlanta that you won't find anywhere else. It could be unique, it could be quirky. Don't say the varsity because everybody keeps using that one.
That's not what I was thinking.
Good,
I was
good,
thinking
good.
the fact that we have 71 streets by the name of Peachtree in some form or fashion.
Oh,
Peachtree
really?
Street, Peachtree Road, Peachtree Court. I mean, it's just crazy.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I know. I knew it was a lot of them, but I didn't know how many until I looked it up. It's actually
Right.
71. I'm
So
like,
wait, 71.
71.
Oh my God, I thought you said 7 at first. 71.
No,
Oh God.
71.
Jeez.
Can you imagine, like, people not understanding where they are because they're on a Peachtree and they think they're where they are, but because it's Peachtree
Right.
Street and not Peachtree Court. Yeah, so
I did not know that.
that's unique to me. I think that's kind of odd and funny.
Yeah, I'd probably get lost many, many times. So,
I
all
know.
right, so tell us about yourself outside real estate. You know, where did you grow up? How long have you been in Atlanta, and where do you live now?
So I'm from a very small town by the name of Adel, Georgia. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Is it north,
You know about
south, east?
about
Okay.
Austin, Tipton?
Okay.
Okay, I'm in between those two. So very small town. I was born and raised there. I moved here about 13 years ago, and I've been in Atlanta area for 13 years now. I'm married and I have 3 kids. I have my youngest is 17, so I'm almost an empty nester. So,
Aw.
so yeah, and I'm in the area of Douglasville now. I was in Fairburn and I just moved to Douglasville area just recently.
Okay. Oh, now when you empty nest, are you going to have to sell your home, or are you staying for the long haul?
I've only moved here for him, so I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. We're just kind of figuring it out.
Right. My parents, they're empty nesters, and my mom's like, we're never moving. I'm like, what? Okay, that's fine. You know, whatever you want to do. I'm not here to tell you, but it's interesting. Some people go off and explore, and some are just content where they are. And
Right.
I've got a long time. My kids are 5 and 7, so I've got a long time before that's going to happen. But
I
I know it goes quickly.
It does. It does.
Okay, and so in an effort to support small businesses where you are, or, you know, in South Fulton, where are your favorite places to eat, to grab a coffee, places to go when you can go again, if it's like concerts or bigger areas?
Well, some of the places I like to eat is Milk and Honey. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but it sounds amazing.
It's really, really good. You would think, I don't know, that it's all breakfast or whatever, but it has soul food. It's really good. It has a variety of foods. So I like that one, and I like This Is It, another soul food restaurant.
Mhm.
And I'm a piece of cake type of girl. I love piece of cake.
Okay.
And so I go there regularly, and I'm a Starbucks girl.
Are you? Yeah,
I'm a
I feel you. Well, thank God for drive-throughs. When we were in quarantine, I was like, oh, thank God. At least I can get in my
those
car.
drive-thrus is crazy, though.
Yeah, you're like spending an hour just waiting in your car to get a coffee. It's like, what's happening to me? I'm like waiting an hour just to get a coffee.
Right.
I'm that
Like,
desperate.
is it really that
Yeah.
serious?
I don't know. And some days when you're stuck at home with your kids, it could be worth the hour.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the housing market in Southern Fulton County. What is it like?
It's crazy right now. It is, because it's a seller's market. We don't have a whole lot of houses that's up for sale, and so buyers are really working hard. They're working hard to get houses because interest rates are low, so many people are trying to buy right now, but there's not a whole lot of people willing to sell. And
Right.
the builders are actually kind of behind because they oversold. And so we're having 6, 9, 8 months to wait on houses to be built. And so, I mean, it's a hot market. It really is. It's just a seller's market.
It's hard. It's hard when you're a buyer. And
It's
even
hard
as
for you, right?
even as a seller, it's like, great, you know, you can sell your home and probably do pretty well, but where are you
Where
going to
you
go? Yeah. And like whatever you made when you sold your home, you're probably going to have to use to pay a little bit more when you buy your home. So it's like, there's no trade-off, you know, it's
It's
hard
always
to,
that checks and balance right there, isn't it? You know?
right, right. Like what's most important to you right now? And that's how you got to make your choice.
And so if you're looking, like for instance, people who bought a house and they don't really like it, this is the time to sell it and maybe get some money off of it, because usually you can't sell your house within 24, 48 months,
Hmm.
2 years without losing money. But
Right.
right now, we're at that point where you can say, it's buyer's remorse. I don't like my house. It's not big enough. I got another kid. It's quarantine. We're home all the time. We should buy something else. So this is the time that you can actually sell it, make some money off, and then actually buy what you want. And I guess because the interest rates are so low, they kind of even out in your payments, even though you're paying more for the house.
Hmm.
The payments are kind of lower because the interest rates are.
Right.
So again, it's kind of checks and balance type of thing.
Right. And so how did you get into real estate? What made you want to become an agent?
So prior to being an agent, I worked at a law firm for 18 years.
Oh, okay.
I was a paralegal. So I was kind of already in the legal part of, I wasn't a real estate paralegal, but I was a paralegal. And I enjoyed that for all those years, but I kind of hit a brick wall. I was kind of to the point where I want to do something different. I want to have my own business that I can kind of cater to it the way I want to cater it. And so I went to a real estate connection event with my husband, who has a moving company, who was there to network with real estate agents.
Which, by the way, what is his company? Just so we can put it out there.
His company is Take the Great Moving Company.
Take the Great Move. Okay, good. I just wanted to
Yeah, so he's
give
been
him
in
a little
business
plug.
14 years. So he
Oh,
has already
wow.
kind of had in a business going. And so when I wanted to start a business, he was really good about helping me, like, okay, you can do this. I've done it, you can do it. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got into real estate, and I love it. I really do. I'm so glad I got into it 3.5 years ago.
And so since you were a paralegal, are you like the go-to for contracts and reading through everything?
Kind of, sort of, and that was the part, because when you first become a real estate agent, you don't have any experience, and so you have to be able to market yourself to people. And I could market myself as, I'm going to make sure that your documents are done right. I believe in due diligence, and so I understand the importance of reading through documents and making sure that everything is correct. So that part, you don't have any worries about. And so, yeah, the document part, the contracts, it was easier for me because I'd been in the real estate paralegal department for so long.
Right. And so where you are, what do you do more of? Do you work more with buyers, listings? Is it new construction, flipping, a little bit of everything?
It kind of fluctuates by the year. I think my first year it was more buyers and sellers. But this year is like all new construction. So right now, all buyers. I have like 7 or 8 people on the contract with new constructions right now. And so it just kind of fluctuates. So I do a little bit of all. I do buying, listing, and new constructions. I just don't work as a new construction agent, if you get what I mean.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so for those that are building, do you have any good tips for them that you...
Be very patient.
Yeah.
Understand that it's unprecedented times and that things are just different than normal. And so you have to understand that, yes, getting a new construction is the best thing right now. You just know that it may not be done in 5 months like they said. It might be 7. So make sure that you have yourself set up that you're okay if it's a month or 2 months off, that it's not going to like mess up your whole timeline.
Right. And then do you normally suggest, I know when we build, we did, before they put the drywall up, we went through and took like photos of where all the pipes are, where the ductwork is. And then we also got an inspection before we closed.
Yes, I recommend that for everything. So that's why I didn't come up in mind for me to say it to you. I recommend inspections for every house. Because a lot of times, like you think, people will say, oh, it's a new construction, they're going to do it right. Yeah, no, everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
So you need a second set of eyes to make sure that they didn't miss anything. And so, yes, I definitely recommend you get a new report done, inspection done prior to closing on a house, and do a thorough walkthrough. When you go through a walkthrough, this is your time to be picky. I tell my clients, this is your time to be picky, because after that, you can't be picky anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk through and you see any little nick in the wall, any paint that's not painted correctly, mention it now, because after you buy it, it's yours.
Right, right. And it's funny. So we were like the beginning of phase two. And so we were pretty picky, but even after we closed, the project manager was still around. And so we'd kind of like go outside and wave him down. I think he would drive through the neighborhood like this. But I always think about the people that are at the end of the phase when they're getting ready to pack up and leave. And it's like, oh, you're dealing with the warranty department. Like, and that can be, having gone through that myself, like dealing with the warranty department can be really hard, and you have to be persistent.
True. That's
So,
true.
yeah. So like whatever you can get done now, and while you're haven't closed yet, like be picky, as you said, because I think it gets really hard to get things fixed.
Because you are so excited when you do the first walkthrough, and you're like, oh, I love the house. It's so pretty. It's so shiny. It's so clean. And when you're not looking at the little, details of the house. And so once you live in it and you sitting there like in your kitchen at the table and you're looking at a wall and like, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. And so you just really have to notice that kind of stuff. And so a lot of times they don't want agents to come because they think we're going to see everything.
Right.
But I try my best to go with my clients for every walkthrough so that I can point out things that they may not be noticing because they're so excited about the house looking so pretty.
Right. And but it's, if it's supposed to be brand new and wonderful, like it should be. So, I don't think consumers should feel bad about being picky, because you're going to pay for it for 30 years. You should love it and it should be great.
Right.
All right. So go ahead.
And I had a client the other day. They were so sweet. They're just a sweet couple. And so they're walking through with the builder, and he has to tape in his hand. So they have to ask for, say, can I get a piece of tape? And I'm like, we need some tape.
Yeah, just give me the roll.
Just give it to me. I can help. But they were just trying to be very, and I appreciate that too.
Right.
But it's kind of like, this is your house. So it's okay for you to say, hey, I see something wrong there. Can we figure out what's wrong?
Right. Oh, I remember that tape when we had nail pops, that first year. We'd tape all over our house because we would just, because like after a while, like they just blend in and you forget where the nail pops were, and they come back in like a year. We tape everywhere. I'm like, I don't care. It wasn't even painted. Like, just stick it on there. Because I'll never find this nail pop again.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about seller's market. So what are some things a home buyer can do to be competitive without being totally, what's the right word? Totally reckless, I think is a good word.
Okay, so a couple of things they can do is, because they're going to pay, closing costs or pay their down payment in a way, they can offer more earnest money from the beginning.
Okay, but if people don't know, sometimes there's first-time home buyers. Earnest money is
like a deposit that you're putting down to the seller, saying, hey, I'm very serious about your home, and I want to show you by saying I will give you a certain amount of money for you to hold this house for me. That's pretty much what it's indicating. And so usually it's 1%, but sometimes if you really want to show how interested in the house, you can go even higher than that. So you can say, hey, I'm going to pay $20,000 at closing anyway. Let me go ahead and give you $5,000 up front, to let you know that I'm serious. And so that's one thing. In the seller's market now, most sellers aren't paying for closing costs, unfortunately, because they don't have to. So buyers need to have money saved up to pay for their down payment and their closing costs.
right.
Before, we can get sellers to pay all of it, if not half of it, but now they don't have to. They're not willing to. So for you to be competitive, you need to put in an offer saying, I'll pay all my closing costs, and I will give you this amount of earnest money. Also, due diligence, which is a time frame in which you get your inspection done and anything else you want to get checked in the house. And usually we ask for like 10 days. That's the norm. But at this time, we're asking like 5 days.
Wow.
Just to let them know, hey, we're serious. We're going to get an inspector in there like day one. Find out what we want to know about it. And in case we don't want the house, we can walk away from it and you can put it back on the market instead of having to wait 10 days to put it back on the market.
Right.
So those things, and not really asking for a whole lot of stuff. Before we used to be able to say, hey, we want to inspect, we want a warranty, we want you to do this, you want us to do that. And now it's like, we can't ask for anything. But
Right.
now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get a warranty. You should pay for it maybe yourself if you can afford to. But you just can't ask the seller to pay for it.
Right. Right. And then, so, there's some talk about waiving an appraisal. So can you explain, because I think, I follow a lot of community forums and, that's suggested sometimes, but I don't think people understand like that you're on the hook for a difference if you choose substance. Can you explain what that is?
So if you waive the appraisal, that means if that house get appraised and it's $20,000 less than what the appraisal says, that means you're going to pay that out of pocket. It's not going to be financed along with your loan because your loan is not going to give you $20,000 more than what the house is worth. And so that means you have money in the bank that you're willing to put up to pay because you want the house just that bad. So you have to be very prepared for that if you say, I'm going to waive the appraisal contingency. Now, people with cash do that frequently because they may not even get it appraised sometimes because it's a cash deal. They're going to rent it out. It's okay. They're not trying to sell it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is a home buyer that you're very limited in funds, you should never, ever do that because you end up losing out on the house because you can't afford it at the end.
Right. And I'm glad we talked about this because I feel like, a lot of times consumers go to forums to ask questions and I've said this before, like you don't know who is responding to you. Maybe they've never even bought a home, or maybe they've bought in 6 and have the cash to buy like 2 homes and don't care. But that might not be your scenario in your situation. So what works for them isn't going to work for you. And that's part of why I wanted to do these panels to ask an expert, is just so you understand, the impact of your choices and help you get answers from people who actually live in that area, have experience and know what they're talking about versus a stranger online that might tell you something that's maybe even illegal.
Right.
So.
And to that fact, it's not even that they don't know what they're talking about, but every situation is different sometimes. And so they don't tell you all the ins and outs of that deal. Some things are done in certain deals, like you said, that's cash. And, some things are done and they can do that, but this scenario is totally different. And so their credit may be lower. They may have a different type of loan. Anything could be different when you're giving out advice. And so it's hard to give out advice to the masses without knowing your particular situation. And so, yes, asking people on a forum that has only bought one house in their lifetime and they can only go by that one house. Yeah.
Right. Or if it was years ago, it's almost like when you have a kid and
Right.
like 3 years later, you're like, that wasn't that bad. I can do that again. And then you do it again. You're like, oh gosh, I forgot about this. But it's almost the same. Like even if you're doing for sale by owner, like you can do it. It's not necessarily easy sometimes, but when it's years down the road, I think you forget a lot of the details and a lot of the struggles that go through with selling and buying a home, that you forget that. And you share the positive aspects, but you're not letting people know about the whole experience.
Exactly. And that's also when you're talking to your friends. When you've hired a real estate agent, trust the real estate agent because you hired them for a reason. Don't talk to your friends, your family members, and let them tell you certain things. And then it's totally opposite because they haven't bought a house in 20 years.
Right.
Like
Right.
some people will say, oh, I wouldn't pay that much for that house. I would ask for $5,000 different. No, that's a different market. In this market, you're going to either pay that price or more, not less. We're not in the get a deal, you get a deal type of market.
Yeah.
But that's some people who bought in that type of market is like, no, I wouldn't pay full price for that house.
You don't
And that
have a
makes it
choice.
harder for the agents because they believe their family member because they're family.
Right.
So they
Right.
trust them over you sometimes and they don't know what they're talking about.
It's funny you mentioned that because there was just a conversation yesterday about someone's parents being unsupportive with how much they're going to pay for a home. And you kind of forget, the last time my parents bought a home was maybe like 20 years ago. And how much a home cost 20 years ago versus now is very different. But you love your parents, but sometimes maybe they just don't understand how much things have changed. And there's that sticker shock value of how much a home costs now. And it's like, I can't believe you'd pay that, but that's what people pay now, and And you're right,
It's a
like
going
you,
rate.
right. You need an expert, which is, you know, why we do these panels to be able to have that unbiased, experienced person to ask questions to, which leads me to my next question. How do you find a good agent without asking your friends or family? Say you're moving to Atlanta and you don't know a soul. How would you, if you were just a consumer getting ready, how would you suggest that they find an agent to get ready to make a move?
Well, it's kind of similar to what you went through to get panelists. I think if you don't know anybody in that town, Google them. That's just the quickest way to learn somebody is to Google real estate agents in that area. Then you find a couple and then you do your research. You go to their Google reviews to see if they have any reviews, or go to Zillow and see if they have any reviews on Zillow. Check their business social media page, and see kind of how they're posting, what they're talking about. Do they act like they're a real estate agent online? Or just Google their name, because most real estate agents who have worked the business, if you put their name in on Google, you're going to see their name on a lot of different sites. And so you just got to do the research. So I think first off, you can just go straight to Google and then just Google and research from there.
Right. And I wanted to plug too, what I love about social media, it's such an easy way for you to contact an agent, even through like Facebook Messenger, DMs, because I feel like that's a better way to protect your info versus I looked at your profile on Zillow or wherever, and I'm going to fill out this form to contact you. But when you're going through those third-party sites, especially one that's based in real estate, like your info is probably going to be going a bunch of places, because now they know that you could be a lead for the mortgage company, for the title, for the home insurance. And so, as you navigate this, I feel like any way that you can even just call them directly, or most
Exactly.
agents have their email, do it that way to protect yourself versus becoming a ginormous sales lead for the big real estate companies, because that's how they make a lot of money. I think, someone told me it's like 100 million leads were sold last year. I don't know if that was just to agents. I mean, I could be, who knows? But, in that industry alone, there's 5 million homes and there were 100 million leads sold. So that tells you, your info goes a lot of places. So always email or phone call, or even through social is a great way. So, we talk about interviewing agents. When you find a few that you like, what are some things that you think are a red flag when you're talking to an agent that you would say, oh, I don't want to use you?
They talk bad about a previous client or agent. I think if you come off with negativity to try to make yourself look better, that's a problem. So you don't have to do that. You can just talk about what you can bring to the table, as opposed to this company doesn't do this or this, So I think that is definitely a red flag, because you don't have to put another company down or another agent down to make yourself look good if you're good at what you do. I think if you come unprepared, and just kind of disorganized, you come in and you don't have all the documents in order, you're like, hold on one second, let me. So I think that's definitely a red flag, because it shows right then that they don't have organization skills. And so when you're asking them questions, they're not going to know exactly what you're talking about. They're not going to know. It's just definitely a big red flag for me. I think too, lack of enthusiasm. I mean, some people who you talk to and they just have this, hey, how is it? How you doing? Just kind of show a little more enthusiasm to show that you're happy to be there and happy to talk to that client, and you're willing to do whatever they need to help them through this process. And so I think enthusiasm is something that I think is important.
Right. No, those are good. And I think too, even when you mentioned looking at their social media pages too, I think it's important to point out, like, don't get swayed by photos of expensive cars or expensive dinners, because that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an agent that's selling thousands. Anyone can make themselves look amazing on social media. So as you mentioned, it's the content. Like, what are they talking about? Are they involved in their community? And exactly. Are they communicating, their experience to you? I think that's great. So what is one thing you wish consumers understood more about buying and selling a home?
Oh, wow. Um,
I know there
it
could
is
be
a
a few.
process. That is truly a process, and it's a very major process. And so you want to have the best person to help you navigate through that, because if you don't, it's easy to have a mistake made that can cause you problems for a long time. Even if you decide to sell it in a couple of years, if the problems was made at the beginning, it can make it difficult for you to sell later on. And so I think they really need to understand that they need someone to protect their interests, and they need someone that they trust to protect them.
Right, right. And it's funny too, you as a consumer, you kind of think you need an agent for this, this, and this, but like no one ever talks about what happens after you make your offer. Like all the things that you have to do and go through, and the inspections and everything with the lending. You know, it when your offer goes in, it doesn't just like you're not done. You know,
Right.
it could be a while, and things happen. And that's why we always love to talk about agents with experience, because they most likely have gone through many scenarios. It's no, there's never like an easy. I mean, maybe there is every once in a while, but
Every
yeah,
once in a while.
once in
Every
a
once in a
while.
while.
But it's never like a seamless process. There's always going to be something that comes up in one way or another.
And I think too, as agents, when we talk to our clients, we have to walk them through the whole scenario from the beginning. I mean, even though they're going to ask questions later, they're not going to remember everything we said. But at least when they hear it later on, they can remember, oh, you did say something like that. I remember you saying, you know. So when you're talking to, like, for instance, a buyer, you go through the whole entire step. You know, when you come to me, this is what we're going to do first. Then we're going to send you to a lender, and then we're going to look for houses. Once we find your house, then if we put in an offer, we're going to negotiate the offer. I mean, once we're accepted, then we got to get your inspection done. You know, you walk through the whole process of them. You tell them the definitions of due diligence. You tell them the definition of financing contingency and appraisal contingency. And so you have to walk them through, especially first-time home buyers. I mean, they don't know anything. And so you have to educate them. And so education is key for buyers and sellers too, because even though you may buy a house, you've never sold a house. And it's totally different on the other side.
right,
So you have to educate.
right. And then ending on a positive note, what's the best thing about Atlanta?
The best thing about Atlanta to me is opportunities are endless here. So many people come here to build a better life, and they can. And it's easier for them to do it here because there's just so many opportunities. I left Valdosta, the Adel area 13 years ago with my youngest son, and we came here and started completely over. And so many people could come here and really just start a new life for themselves, build businesses, and just be very successful in Atlanta. And that's the one thing I love about
Mhm. Anything
Atlanta.
important you think people should know?
I think, what's the question?
Did I skip one? I might have skipped.
Oh, I know you asked, like, what is a question that you could ask a real estate agent that you're interviewing?
Oh, yes.
And I think a good question is to ask them, what's the most important quality that you possess that makes you good at what you do? I think that's a very good question to ask, because some people may be very good people person. So you want to have someone that you can relate to, communicate with. That, you know, some people may not be a people person, but that might fit for you because you're direct. You know, so it's all about what they're good at that fits you. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I think that's an important question that agents can ask, to kind of see what kind of person that they are.
Yeah.
But that makes them kind of talk about themselves a little bit, you know, not just
Right.
your
Right.
stats,
Right.
but yourself.